Hey everyone, thank you for tuning into Indie Dave Comics. I, of course, am Indie Dave. We're going to do a little bit of something different today. Uh, we're not going to be reviewing a comic, we're going to be talking a little bit about Move the Needle. Move the Needle is a really cool movement right now where you take some pictures of your comics and you hashtag it Move the Needle and you put it up on Twitter or you put it up on Instagram, or you put it up on Facebook, and basically you're showing everybody that you're actually purchasing comics and you're demonstrating the power of the customer by basically helping out your local comic shop, you're helping out your comic creators, and you're buying comic books and actually showing the amount of money you're putting into this industry. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about a suggestion I have. This is not to hijack the movement. This is not to try to take control of anything. It's just a suggestion to take it to the next level. This is not an instead of idea. This is an as well as idea, which means I'm not going to suggest that you stop buying anything. I'm not going to suggest that you change anything that you're doing already as far as Move the Needle. What I'm going to suggest is focusing a little bit just to try to get some actual measurable results. By that I mean, well, we're going to talk a little bit about what I think moving the needle is. I think of moving the needle as kind of like a pressure gauge. Here's your needle. These are all your readings. Generally, your comic sale, what I suggest is we pick a comic every month, possibly every other week, possibly every new comic book day. Everything can be hashed out later, but the basic idea is to get a measurable number that we can point to and say, look, we did that. This is the movement. This is what the movement did every month or every whatever. So I'm thinking the needle is like a pressure gauge. On an average month, we can look at the history of a particular comic. We can say it sold this many numbers this month. We can say it sold, roughly the same the next month. Usually the numbers will go up and down a little bit. Your needle's going to be right around, here. This is where your average sales are going to be. And what we want to do is pick a comic, maybe because of the creator, the writer, the artist. Maybe it's because it's just a really cool comic that hasn't gotten enough attention. And we're going to pick that comic that's got regular, recorded, steady sales. It's got steady sales for, these numbers are just kind of made up. Obviously, it's a made up comic, and, I'm trying to use some easy numbers to work with. But something that we can measure. We can look back on and say, okay, January had this many sales, February had this many sales, March had this many sales. They're kind of, more or less steady. And we're going to say, in April, I want everybody to buy Super Bugman on, in April when it comes out. And I want you to hashtag Move the Needle. Whether that's a comic that's ever interested you in the past, I want you to buy it and I want you to try it out. We're already kind of doing this, but I'm trying to get into an actual measurable number result. We can go on Comic-Con or something like that, and where we can get a sense of the sales. In April, we're going to say, okay, let's pick this comic, and we're going to spike the needle. We're going to take the needle from its average, and we're going to spike it just a little bit, just for that month. This isn't to say the next month you don't buy the comic. The idea is to buy the comic, read it, check it out. If it's something you like, maybe instead of it spiking, maybe it goes up, and they keep more sales. The idea is that what we want is to be able to, at the end of the year, or after 6 months or 7 months or whatever, look back and say, okay, as a group, as a movement, we chose this comic. And in this month, you can see clearly that sales were steady and then it spiked. Or it went up on that month when we picked and it stayed up. So the idea is to actually be able to say, look, you can't say we didn't do this, because every month we'll pick a different comic. And we'll say, maybe it's Superbug Man this time. Maybe the next one, it's, whatever, Superman. Or maybe it's Wonder Woman, or whatever it is that we pick. And we say, look, on this month, we picked this comic, and the same thing happened. It had steady sales, and then that month we picked it, and it spiked. After so many months, that's not a fluke. That is a measurable result. We can look at Comichron, and we can say, we did this. The idea isn't to just move the needle. The idea is to prove that it was us that moved the needle. So what I'm suggesting is, I would like, obviously, the big names in this. I'd like Zach. I'd like, some of these other guys in here, the guys that have the biggest reach, to look at this idea. The idea isn't, it's also not to make anybody Oprah's book club. We're not trying to give power to one person. Maybe as a group, we all vote on a comic, and then we give our suggestion to the guys with the biggest audiences, the guys with the loudest voices. And we say, we're all going to agree on this month to buy this comic, next month to buy that comic, whatever. So we're going to move the needle. We're going to do it in a measurable way. And we're going to do it in such a way where we can point to that and we can say, we moved that needle. We did it on purpose. And there's no way, after all these months, that it was coincidence. So what we need to do is pick a comic with specific criteria that we can look at. We want a comic with a history of sales over time. Something that's been established. I'm going to make a suggestion. I'm going to suggest that we go with, to start, because it's Wednesday, it's New Comic Day, I'm going to suggest we start Cable 154. That's John Malin's last Cable run. It's got a history of sales, I imagine, actually, since John Malin's been on it, and since his name's come up, I imagine it's already gone up a little bit. But we can look at those sales, and if we all agree that everybody buys this comic today, when it comes out, that's going to spike the needle. That's going to spike it into the red a little bit, and that will give us our first measurable result. Tell me what you think of this idea. Subscribe. Check me out on Twitter. If you're already following me, give me a DM. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think it's a bad idea. Let me know if you think it's a good idea. If you have other suggestions. I'm not trying to hijack anything. I'm not trying to be a louder voice or anything like that. I'm just making a suggestion. I kind of like numbers. I like to be able to look at something and say, look, this is definitive proof that we have done something. That's really all I'm all about with this. All right, so I'm Indie Dave. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much. And I will see you later on.
Please hang up and try again.